Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Today, I want to talk to you about investigating your PMDD intrusive thoughts. I really wanted to record this. I am in an Airbnb, spending time with my partner. It is his birthday this week, and then also he's getting promoted with work. And I'm coming here. I'm on about day 8 of my follicular phase, so I'm in my good days. And this month has been the roughest month that I've had to date, as far as my PMDD is concerned, as far as my cycle is concerned. And it is because I went a whopping 19 days in PMDD. I have no idea what is going on, if I'm going into perimenopause. But I know that things are shifting and changing for me, and that has really impacted in how I show up in my relationship with my partner. And I feel like he didn't even know what was going on this month. Like, it took both of us for a loop. But I wanted to do this episode on investigating your PMDD intrusive thoughts, because now that I'm in my follicular days and I'm having a chance to really investigate, which is a process that I do every single month, all of the intrusive thoughts that I had when I was in PMDD, and just spending time with him. I think about one day of spending time with my PMDD partner, I was literally thinking to myself, what? How could I possibly think that or have thought that and believed it to be true? Like, because these intrusive thoughts, they're so convincing, you really believe them to be true. And then now that I'm out of it and I'm in my follicular days, I know for sure none of those things that I was thinking about my PMDD partner were true, but I also know that I reacted to some of them. And this is why you have to investigate them. And I tell this to my private clients all the time, but I really felt like I really had to live it a lot because my PMDD was so long. It was kind of like I had no choice but to like get bogged down with the intrusive thoughts because they were going on for so long. And so every additional day that I was suffering, like I normally only have 14 days of PMDD, and then the rest of the time is, good days. So I half and half, but I noticed that things have been changing with my cycle. So it's forced me to stay in this place of suffering, which means fighting off the things that have to do with PMDD became harder. It became harder on my body, but most importantly, it became harder on my mind. So an intrusive thought is really a lie, but PMDD has a way of exasperating and making those intrusive thoughts seem really, really true. And I was in a place of believing, these things about my PMDD partner. So one of the things that I was believing is that my PMDD partner does not want to give me or would not allow me to have the freedom that I desire and need to exist. So this is how dramatic or traumatic and intrusive thoughts is. Basically, they are unwanted thoughts, images, impulses, or urges that they occur spontaneously, and they're distressing, and they're really, they're worst case scenario type of things. So if you think about thoughts that you've had about your partner that are worst case scenario, like I would never want this to happen. That's what you think in an intrusive thought. So they're disturbing thoughts that just pop up in your mind about your PMDD partner that makes you feel uneasy. It makes you feel stressed. It makes you feel like you need to get out of there. But because they're intrusive thoughts, they go again and again and again on repeat. So what I want you to know is that the intrusive thoughts that you have about your PMDD partner are most likely linked to your core values. So what does that mean? One of my main core values is freedom, right? I like to be free to do whatever it is that I want to do. I'm a free spirit. I'm a Sagittarius. I'm an Enneagram 7. Anything that constrains me, bogs me down, puts me in a box, I run away from. That's a personality trait of mine. And so when it came to dating, a red flag would be if a partner starts to question things that I'm saying or doing, mostly doing. Like if I go to do something and I have the purest intentions, but my partner at the time would ask me, hey, for more details about it, but more details in an inquisitive manner where you're trying to see if the partner is doing something shady. You know how you ask questions like, oh, you're going here. Oh, who are you going to meet? Who are you going to be with? Oh, how long are you going to be there? All of those things that make me feel like I'm put in a box, I feel the need to run away from because I have an avoidant attachment style when it comes to relationships. When I'm in PMDD, every single time that my partner does anything like question me, I immediately have all of these intrusive thoughts where I literally will think he's trying to take your freedom away from you. He's trying to control you. He's being manipulative. You're not going to be able to live your life as a free spirit with him because he's going to be checking everything that you're doing, and you're not going to feel as free, and you're going to feel like you're trapped. And being trapped is one of my biggest fears. And I want you to know that the intrusive thoughts that you're going to have about your PMDD partner are going to be based off of your biggest fear. So my biggest fear is to be trapped in a home where I'm not happy because I'm not able to freely move and do things that serve me, especially, and I have to, I have someone questioning my character. Because I have such pure intentions and I have no intentions of doing anything wrong to anyone, I genuinely love my PMDD partner. I only want to be with my PMDD partner. I don't think about cheating. I don't have that. It's like a thing. It's not a character thing for me, but it is a trigger for my PMDD partner because he's been cheated on in the past, and dramatically. Like it was horrible. So with my PMDD partner, he is in the military. He was on deployment, and his ex-wife cheated on him and lived a whole separate life. While he was gone. And so the whole time he was thinking that she was there and this loyal wife, and he came home and literally found other people's things in his home, another man's things in his home. And so his thing about his intrusive thoughts, his insecurity comes from not being able to trust the person that you're with. And so when we go into PMDD and I get avoidant, those intrusive thoughts start to bother him to where he questions me, which triggers my intrusive thoughts to feeling like I'm not going to have my freedom. So as you can see, I'm not the only one that has intrusive thoughts. My partner has intrusive thoughts as well. And so when you go through that mode of really understanding you're not the only one when it comes, there's a lot of symptoms that we have in PMDD where we're pretty much the only one. We're the only one having them, but sometimes you can end up having symptoms where it's not just you, it is your partner as well. So I want you to really think about intrusive thoughts as something that you are suffering with and your partner can potentially suffer with. But I really want you to understand that there's a root cause to the intrusive thoughts, and they come from a place of really deep suffering. And what PMDD has a way of doing is really bringing out what is the core fear that you have in your mind. What is the core thing that you're suffering with? And PMDD will exasperate that in that moment. And what I want you to know, I want you to be prepared for that, because when you go into PMDD, a lot of times what causes you to suffer the most is not expecting it, right? So there's this premise, there's two sides of the spectrum. It can come from number one, I don't want to anticipate that these symptoms are going to happen because then I'm creating them because I'm expecting them to happen. But the other side of that is not expecting them to happen. And then they happen so suddenly that it causes you even more suffering because you weren't expecting them. So you get into this mode of thinking, okay, so which one do I do? Do I start to expect it? Or do I act like it's not going to happen? And then when it happens, I get really shocked and I'm even more overwhelmed. And what I want you to do is to be prepared. The best thing you can do, you know, that saying that says, hope for the best, but expect the worst, right? The lack of preparation for the symptoms that you can have when you go into PMDD can cause them to be exasperated a lot because you are literally thinking everything's going great. And then your body, your mind is shocked with these symptoms. And that causes you to suffer even more. And if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a plan on how you're going to navigate, how you're going to combat any of those symptoms or any of those things that's going on, it's going to cause you to suffer even more. So I want you to always have a plan of what you're going to do when you have intrusive thoughts, when you have PMDD rage, when you're suffering with that depression, when you're suffering with that anxiety. It's not a matter of expecting it, but at least when you know that it's coming, you have something to do about it. And that is where the PMDD Partners Breakup Proof Academy comes in, because you genuinely can go there and say, this is what I'm suffering with. And I can click on something that's actually going to be able to help me and learn strategies, learn tools, create that PMDD Partners toolbox that you can have. Because the worst thing for me earlier in my journey was really going through a lot of symptoms and not knowing what to do about it. And when you're in that fight or flight mode, when you're dealing with symptoms that you weren't prepared for, and you're just trying different things, my business coach calls it throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks, right? You're not in that mode when you're experiencing PMDD symptoms to be able to come up with something off the fly and just say, oh, I'm going to create a strategy. You're not in that mode to do that. You're already dealing with half a tank and you're just trying to survive. So you don't have the time to Google and look up things to do. And so when your partner comes in and they're not knowing what's going on either, then this is when you have the frustration and the monthly breakups, because you have two people that are experiencing this high level of stress, high level of anxiety, the avoidance, the anxiousness. They're experiencing all of these symptoms and they're not knowing what to do about it. And so because you're not in a place to explain to your partner what to do about it, they're not in a place to know what to do about it, you both go in your minds and start creating these stories. When you create these stories in your mind, the intrusive thoughts run wild. They start giving you worst case scenarios about what's going on with you and what's going on with your partner. So what I want you to remember is, in these intrusive thoughts, they're based off of facts. There are things that have actually happened in your PMDD relationship. So that's why they're so convincing. Because, you know, when you hear the intrusive thoughts are lies, you're like, how can they be lies when what's going on in my mind is actually the truth? So if you're thinking that your partner is not supportive and that you're going to have to do everything on your own, for example, I have a lot of private clients where that's the first thought that comes to their mind, is that I'm going to have to do everything on my own. my PMDD partner is not going to be there to support me. And then you start looking around, and there may be little things that you maybe have asked your PMDD partners to do, or little ways that you've asked your PMDD partners to support you, and they haven't done that. And now you're latching on to that. So that's what I want to let you know. When you are deep in the realm of suffering from intrusive thoughts, you're in a place of you're latching on to little facts about your relationship, little facts about you, and you're latching onto them as if they are true. So that little scenario that you have is spinning around in your mind again and again and again, and you're starting to create a story based off of that intrusive thoughts. So they're disturbing thoughts that pop into your mind that you didn't ask for, that make you feel uneasy in that moment. And it may seem that they come out of nowhere, right? It may seem that they are worst case scenario things that may cause you to even feel worry or shame because you're trying to push it out of your mind. But what I've taught you before and what I'm going to remind you of now is what you resist will persist. So if you keep resisting that intrusive thought where you keep saying, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen, you're going to get more of it because you're going against it. And so I want you to know that if you try to avoid having the intrusive thoughts, then sometimes it can make them come up even more because you're thinking to yourself, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. But you're spending so much time focusing on what you don't want without really understanding that that focus on what you don't want on that intrusive thought is making you have more of it. You're giving more energy towards it. You're focusing on it more. So what I want you to do is understand that these intrusive thoughts are lies, but they can be used by facts. So this is something that, you can even get with OCD, with anxiety, with depression, and they trigger that. So the intrusive thoughts are going to trigger your stress and anxiety. Your stress and anxiety are going to create your intrusive thoughts, if that makes any sense. So if you think about a time where you're dealing with a lot of stress, you're dealing with a lot of anxiety, expect the intrusive thoughts to come in. So that's a way of preparing yourself. If you know that you're going through PMDD and you're experiencing stress, know that intrusive thoughts are probably coming. And so one of the ways that you can wonder, okay, is this an intrusive thought? Is to think about, is this thought unusual for you? Right? So an intrusive thought is something different from your typical thoughts about your PMDD partner, about your relationship. There's something very outlandish. You may start to, if you are in your good days and you think, oh, I love my PMDD partner, everything's great. And then all of a sudden you have these intrusive thoughts and you start to question if they love you, if they care about you. It is something unusual. And the next sign is that it bothers you. Right? It's something that you really, really want to push out of your mind. And you don't want to think that about your partner. It may be that, oh my goodness, my PMDD partner is going to cheat on me, right? It's something so outlandish where you're like, no, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about that. That means that it must be an intrusive thought. And another thing is, ask yourself, are these intrusive thoughts repetitive? Where they come in your mind again and again and again, and it's hard for you to control. When you have negative thoughts that are hard for you to control, that is a sign that they're intrusive thoughts because you're not able to just push it out of your mind. So the more anxious, the more you think about it, the more anxious you get, and then the worse your thoughts get. So it's like this cycle of saying, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm having this horrible thought. And then you get anxious about the thought. And then the thought gets even worse because it goes to the next line where you're telling more about the story. So instead of fighting these intrusive thoughts, instead of trying to push it out of your mind, I want you to learn to live with them. And I know that that's so hard to hear because you're already trying to wrap your head around learning to live with PMDD. But I want you to learn to live with having PMDD intrusive thoughts, meaning when they come, you're not freaking out, you're not feeling panicked, you're not believing them, you're just expecting that they're going to be there. And I'm going to give you some PMDD trauma transformational tools of what you can do about it when they come. But there's so many things that go on with PMDD that we're just trying to cure. We're just trying to get rid of. And a lot of times there are things that we need to learn to live with, not cure, not push away, not, make it that the only way that we're going to be okay is if it doesn't exist anymore. There's a lot, anxiety, depression, intrusive thoughts, rage. These are all symptoms of the disorder. So I want you to stop trying to find a cure and start trying to find tools to manage it. I really feel like that's really going to help you reframe your mind, because there's a lot of suffering in trying to cure things, trying all these things, putting your body and your mind through all of these things, thinking, I'm going to cure this by doing this. I'm going to cure this by, you may not be able to. You may not be able to, and that's okay. That is completely okay. But I want you to get into that mindset to where you are not waiting for a cure for intrusive thoughts. This is not a quick fix. I told you on so many episodes, and I tell this to my private clients so many times, we need to be in this for the long haul. We need to be understanding that this is, once you have it, the disorder can last all the way from, as young as 11, all the way until you are in your 50s. That is a lifetime. For some people, that is an actual lifetime. And I need you to wrap your head around that and not think that you can opt out of these intrusive thoughts and just say, okay, well, I don't want to think these thoughts. This is normally when we go into the irrational thinking of what we should be doing as far as curing our PMDD. We start to say, oh, I'm going to do this program, or I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this medicine. I'm going to do this ritual. I'm going to do all these things. And you're doing something to cure it when you really need to be putting your energy towards tools to manage it. Again, this is where the PMDD Partners Breakup Proof Academy comes in. It is a 2-month academy that is going to give you the tools to manage these symptoms that you are absolutely going to have to deal with if you have PMDD. That is the PMDD rage. That is the PMDD intrusive thoughts. That is the attachment styles, right? That is the PMDD guilt. All of these things are things that you're absolutely going to have to deal with if you have PMDD and you're in a relationship. So what I do is I give you the tools to manage it. I never say, hey, I'm going to cure your PMDD. If you work with me, you're not going to have PMDD anymore. I think that is so false. It is so disheartening. I would never do that, because if that was the case, I wouldn't still have PMDD, right? If you think about it, if a person has the tools to get rid of something, they wouldn't have it themselves. But I'm not saying that. I'm saying you're absolutely going to still have them, but I'm going to give you the tools to manage it. And I feel like that's more believable. And I feel like something that is more realistic. And I feel like that's something that you can take hold of and empower yourself and say, you know what, I may still have PMDD. I want to be in this relationship, so I'm going to utilize these tools. And that's a decision that you have to make. You don't have to think that you're a failure because you go another month and you still have PMDD. You need to shift your goals, because the intrusive thoughts can say, oh, you're going to be like this forever. You're going to suffer like this forever. You're not. Because if you have tools, when it happens, you have something to do about it. So when you start having these PMDD intrusive thoughts, I want you to take the following steps to really combat it. And if this is something that you know that you need help with, we really, really, really go deep in this in the PMDD Partners Breakup Proof Academy. I'm telling you this now because the podcast, I always give you a general outlook on it, and I give you general tools. But in the Breakup Academy, you're going to get specific things that you can customize to your specific relationship. I've had a lot of my private clients ask me, what's the difference between the academy and going on the private sessions and even the podcast? The podcast is giving you very generalized tools that I know that we're all going through that can genuinely help you. So still use them. The private sessions is the most exclusive way to work with me, where you're getting one-on-one attention. We're going deep diving into your relationship. I get to know you, I get to know your PMDD partner, and I strategize tools that are going to specifically work for you all. Not cookie cutter, because I don't believe in that, because what works for me and my partner may not work for you. And that is the part of having those private sessions. The academy is going to give you the tools so that you can customize them yourself. You can say, yes, this is me. This is what I need to do about it. And you can find the tools in there and utilize them for your PMDD relationship. So the first thing that I want you to do when you start having these intrusive thoughts is identify the thought as intrusive. I want you to think to yourself, this is just a PMDD intrusive thought. Saying that one thing will shift your mindset. It is going to shift your mindset because it's going to take you out of believing that this is true. You have to label your PMDD intrusive thoughts. So when they come in your head, you need to say, this is just a PMDD intrusive thought. It's not how I think. It's not what I believe. It's not what I want to do. It is an intrusive thought. It is a separate entity from me. And when you recognize that, then anything that happens within the realms of that thought, you don't have to react to, because it's not true. It is a lie. It is an intrusive thought. The next thing is, I don't want you to fight it. Do not try to make the PMDD partner disappear. Don't try to not have intrusive thoughts anymore. All that's doing is taking your energy away from actually accepting that it's going to be there, because then you're going to get more frustrated and ashamed and feel guilty for even having those PMDD thoughts. Don't try to make it go away. It's going to be there, and that's okay. But as long as you're recognizing that it is a lie, then you don't have to worry about the damage that it's doing, because you're not going to react to it. And the last thing is, don't judge yourself. When you're having these PMDD intrusive thoughts, now there's a fine line. Okay, so I never say, oh, you're having these intrusive thoughts, and I don't want you to get to a point where you're reacting to them. But I do want you to say that you don't have to, when you have those intrusive thoughts, you don't have to do something about it in the moment. So when you're trying to fight it and you're trying to make it go away and you're beating yourself up because you're having those intrusive thoughts, then you're getting into that mode of, I'm a bad person because I'm having these intrusive thoughts while I'm in PMDD. Or you're making excuses and saying, okay, so the only reason that I'm having these intrusive thoughts is because of PMDD, and you're completely disassociating yourself from that. But the power is in whether you react to those intrusive thoughts or if you're just recognizing that they're there. When you're in a position to observe and watch the PMDD intrusive thoughts, but not actually act on them, that is when you're in a place where you're not going to do damage to your PMDD relationship. But if you're still in that place of trying to force yourself to not have them, or if you're in that place of beating yourself up because you're having them, beating yourself up and judging yourself for having them doesn't make you feel any better about yourself. And then it's not going to make you feel any better about your PMDD partner. So when you don't feel good about yourself and you translate that into the relationship, automatically your PMDD partner is going to feel like they're to blame, like they've done something wrong because you're in that deep, dark place. So a lot of times the things that is most triggering is the fact that you're having those thoughts, you're beating yourself up, and there's nothing that your PMDD partner can do about it. So you're putting them in a position to say, hey, I see that my partner is suffering in this way, and there's nothing that I can do about it. So I don't want you to judge yourself, or I don't want you to think that you're a bad person because you're creating these intrusive thoughts. Remember, you are watching the intrusive thoughts. You're not denying that they're there. I don't want you to go into a realm of denial with, saying these affirmations. I'm not thinking this. I'm not thinking this. I'm not thinking it. That's not going to make you not think it. It's just going to make you feel like an even worse person for thinking it, because the intrusive thoughts are not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere for the period of time that you are in PMDD because of the amount of stress physically and mentally that you're going through. So when you're putting yourself through that mental and physical anguish that goes on with being in PMDD, those intrusive thoughts are going to show up to deter you. but it is up to you if you react to them. And if you find that if you find that you've gone off on PMDD rage, or you've reacted to an intrusive thought, you told yourself a story in your mind, which can happen every single month, do not beat yourself up about it, and do not think that you have to wait until the whole next month in order to repair the damage. So what I want to tell you is, when you're dealing with these PMDD intrusive thoughts and you've done damage. So say you didn't listen to this episode and you've already done the damage in your relationship, and you've seen month after month after month that you're continuously doing this damage to your PMDD relationship because of the intrusive thoughts. What I want to let you know is, don't wait a whole month to repair the damage of what you've done one day in PMDD, 1 hour in PMDD. I want you to think of your day, think of your month, think of your week in sections. Don't think of it as, oh, for the totality, for the remaining amount of time that I'm in PMDD, I just have to sit in this suffering because I've caused damage, because I've done something, right? And you've already listened to, and I do have a couple coming up on episodes on PMDD guilt. And when you're dealing with the guilt because of things that you've done when you're in PMDD, and the intrusive thoughts come in and say, you're a horrible person. How dare you do this? I can't believe you did this. If you stay in that place, I want you to think about it big picture. How is that genuinely going to help you get out of that place if you're continuously thinking more negatively about yourself? When you're judging yourself for things that you've done, instead of taking the steps to repair the damage that you've done, you're making yourself feel worse, and you're putting you and your PMDD partner at a halt. You're at a standstill. There's a wall in between you, right? That's built brick by brick, intrusive thought by intrusive thought, right? You're thinking in your mind, I can't believe I said this. I can't believe I did this. I can't believe my partner said this. So what I want to let you know is, when you're having these intrusive thoughts, if you say things that are out of character and your partner says things that are out of character, you're getting into that mode of latching on to one or two things that your PMDD partner says in retaliation for things that you have believed when you have been in the realms of those PMDD intrusive thoughts. Because you have been in the realm of believing those thoughts, you're now looking at your PMDD partner differently, right? So there could be name calling, there could be shaming, there could be blaming, all of these things where you're taking the time to latch onto those things. They're ruminating in your mind, right? It's like catching a fish. Once you have it, it's squirming around and you're holding on to it, right? In your mind, whatever that thought is. So I'll give you an example of one of my private clients I had earlier today. What is, my partner's so selfish because they said this, right? So in their mind, they're going again and again and again, my partner's so selfish, my partner's so selfish. When they're now looking at their PMDD partner, they're seeing them through the realms of that intrusive thought. So they're not seeing their partner do normal things on a day-to-day basis. They're now seeing them through the lens of that identity that they assigned to them as a result of that intrusive thought. Does their partner know that they're having that intrusive thought at the moment? Probably not. Because a lot of times what I want you to remember is, these are intrusive thoughts. These are thoughts that are going in your mind about your PMDD partner. And so when you're continuously thinking about them, there's a fork in the road. First, initially, when you're trying to fight the intrusive thought, you'll say to yourself, that's not true, that's not true. But then when the intrusive thoughts start to bring up facts and stories about your PMDD partner, all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, maybe that is true. Maybe they are selfish. Maybe they don't want the best for me. And as soon as you lean in to that intrusive thought, AKA that lie that your brain is telling you, it has you and you're on the ride, right? It's like looking at a roller coaster. It's a difference between looking at a roller coaster and actually being on a roller coaster. If you're looking at a roller coaster, it's going around and around and around. If at any point you don't want to experience that going around and around and around, you can turn around and walk away. But when you've latched on to that intrusive thought, you are in the ride of that intrusive thought because you believed it. you took that initial belief and questioned it in a way of not questioning it for the truth and saying, maybe this isn't true. You're questioning it and saying, maybe this is true. You're questioning the character of your PMDD partner in a way that you're like, okay, this sounds really outlandish. It sounds really outside of the realms of what I believed about my PMDD partner, but maybe it is true. Now you're in the roller coaster. Now you're locked in, seatbelt locked in. You're going around. And so when the intrusive thought takes you up and then it takes you down, it'll take you in a whole trajectory of believing that your relationship is going in a completely different direction that you thought it was going in, where you thought it was going into this healthy place. You know, if you're not married, you're like, oh, we're going to get married. If you are married, we're going to stay married. We're going to be happy. We're going to have this beautiful life. And this intrusive thought will literally take you outside of that and make you feel like you're going to be in this doom and gloom, this horrible relationship. You're trapped. There's nothing you can do about it. And you can't get out of it because guess what? You're now on the roller coaster. You're now buckled in. So even if you wanted to walk away from that intrusive thought, your initial belief about the intrusive thought keeps you going, spinning around and around and around. And you know when it lets you off, you know when the PMDD intrusive thought lets you off, when it thinks that you're ready to take action because of the lie that you've believed. So when you're so angry, so bitter, so resentful because of that lie, that you're ready to lash out at your partner because of what you're believing in your mind, then guess what? It's like the roller coaster lets you off to go do the damage. And because you're not being a watcher, which I told you before, is you take a step back and you watch the intrusive thoughts instead of trying to control them and stop them, because you're in it, you're now in that position of doing damage. And the horrible thing about it is that you're now feeling justified. You're feeling justified to do the damage in your PMDD relationship because you have now formed a completely different belief about your PMDD partner. You don't even see them the same way. They can do things innocently, things that they're trying to do to be nice to you, you know, and then they could say nice things to you and you won't believe it. You'll actually get mad at them because you'll be like, why are you lying to me? You don't believe that. Or you'll be thinking it in your mind. So they're going around doing nice, sweet things for you. And now all of a sudden you're looking at them with a side eye because you've gone on the roller coaster of believing that intrusive thought, of believing that lie. And you're in that place where you don't know what to do about it. And this is a lot of times when my private clients, they come to me, I know that they've gone on the roller coaster. You know why? Because I know that they no longer see their PMDD partner in a positive light anymore. They can't see the good in them. And that's what the intrusive thoughts do. They tear down the positive things about your PMDD relationship and about your PMDD partner, almost to the point where you're questioning, should I be with this person? This might be a horrible person. I don't know what to do with this. If this is how this person's always going to be. And that is when we go into the always, 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 everything, everything, everything mentality. And I'm going to do a completely separate episode on that, but it's basically the catastrophizing thoughts that it's always going to be like this. They're always going to do this to me. They're always going to make me feel this way. They're always going to cause me more suffering. And then everything I do is wrong. Everything that my partner does is wrong. Everything I need to question, everything. That is the result of believing the intrusive thoughts. So I know what you're thinking. How can I not go on that roller coaster? Because once you're stuck in that catastrophizing of everything, always, 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 the thing that you can do about it is to not lean in and believe that initial intrusive thought. Do not think, this is why I'm giving you the visual, because when things are coming up in your mind, I want you to think, I'm not going on that roller coaster of intrusive thoughts about my PMDD partner and about my relationship. I'm not going on that roller coaster, because once you make that decision to lean in and go on that roller coaster of intrusive thoughts, it is really hard to get out of because you're buckled in. You're going upside down. You're going all around. You're believing this. You're questioning this. You don't know their motives. You don't know their character. Nothing that you know or that you knew before is comforting to you because you're questioning everything because of these intrusive thoughts. So if you know that this is something that you need help with, if month after month you start questioning everything about your PMDD partner, your relationship, their character, whether your compatibility, whether you should even be with them, number one, I want to let you know that it's very common. It is going to happen. And number two, I want you to get into that mode of questioning, but not leaning in. Do not try to fight it, but do not go all in and believing it to the point where your actions are now changing around your PMDD partner because you're believing an intrusive thought. And I know this has happened with you before, where you've sat there and you've been ruminating with intrusive thoughts in your mind, and then you look over at your PMDD partner and you feel completely different about them because of what you thought about in your mind, because of what you've chosen to believe. And just like I tell my private clients, it is a choice. It is absolutely a choice. You don't have a choice as to whether you have the intrusive thoughts, but you have a choice as to whether you believe them. And that is the most powerful thing. And if you give away that choice and you just lean in to believing every PMDD intrusive thought, you're going to go on a ride. And it is going to take you places to where you can't even imagine. You're going to be thinking horrible things, not only about your PMDD partner, not only about your PMDD relationship, but about yourself. You're genuinely going to be thinking you're that bad of a person because you're leaning into these intrusive thoughts. And you and I both know that you're not. And sometimes it takes a little bit of convincing, but the reason why it's taken a little bit of convincing is because you've leaned in and believed it. So what we need to do is extract that belief. We need to get to the root, the core belief that you believed about these intrusive thoughts, find out what it is that you believe and get to the truth of it. And that's the work that I do with my private sessions and also with the PMDD Partners Breakup Proof Academy. So if you know that you have some core beliefs about yourself, some core beliefs about your PMDD partner that we just need to get to the bottom of because they keep coming up on a month-to-month basis, reach out and get the help to do that. Because if not, you're going to go into another month of PMDD with more intrusive thoughts, AKA lies, more beliefs, and then you're going to start to look at your PMDD partner in a completely different light, and it's going to be damaging. And the more months and months that we're piling on top of each other, month after month, PMDD lie after PMDD lie, you're going to start to believe it. And then it's harder to get out of it. And I don't want that for you, and I don't want that for your partner, because a lot of times they don't know what's going on. They don't know if you're really believing these things about them because they've done something, or if it's because it's an intrusive thought, right? Because if they've genuinely not done anything and they're just acting their normal selves, but you have all these intrusive thoughts about them, they're going to start switching behaviors, changing things to try to fix it, when the problem is not in their actions. The problem is in the intrusive thoughts, the beliefs that you're thinking about them and about your relationship. So we need to rewire your brain to getting rid of those PMDD intrusive thoughts into understanding what your PMDD relationship really is, who your PMDD partner really is, and operating off of the truth of that and not the PMDD intrusive thoughts, AKA the lies. We got this. I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD.
And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start Workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship. So you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.